I want to start this video off with a question for all of my more casual viewers. I'm talking about the people who don't do solo challenges in their spare time and don't investigate Pokemon's stats or move pools. What do you think about Kingler? I'm really curious what you think its potential is going to be in yellow version. So let me know in the comments if you are brave enough to post on my channel, a place that collects everyone who is super obsessed with running the game with every single species. Now, if you are more experienced in the solo challenge format, go easy on everyone in the comments. Also, maybe put some spoiler tags down below so that people aren't aware of what's about to happen. Okay, I assume everyone has left their comments. Now, let's start talking about Kingler. It is a mono water type, and water type moves in Generation 1 deal exclusively special damage. For base stats, Kingler has 55 HP, 130 attack, 115 defense, 75 speed, and 50 special. So it is a water type with its worst stat being its special stat, meaning all water and ice type moves, which is typically what water type Pokemon use in these solo challenges, are not going to hit very hard. With its 75 base speed, it has a 14.45% chance to crit in Generation 1. Kingler has the medium fast growth rate, which is not great for these solo challenges, and at the beginning of the game, it does get a physical move, Vice Grip, to leverage its outrageous base attack. However, it has Bubble for Brock, a water type move with 20 base power. Through level up, we get Guillotine at level 25, Stomp at 34, Crabhammer, its signature move at level 42, which has a high critical hit rate, and because of Kingler's base speed and how crit mechanics work in Generation 1, this move will crit 255 times out of 256. The final level up move it gets is Harden, but I don't think we're going to be making use of it for badge boosts, since the first TM Kingler gets is Swords Dance. Now, its TM and HM learn set is very limited. I could read all of these moves, but I'm not going to. It gets the 3 water moves, the 2 ice moves, and in addition to these, it gets Body Slam. For my first playthrough with Kingler, I'm going to run away from every single wild Pokemon that I encounter in the early game, and then fight the mandatory bug catcher inside of Viridian Forest. His level 10 Caterpie can be annoying for some first stage Pokemon when you're going on minimum battles, but for most fully evolved Pokemon, this fight isn't that bad. And with Vice Grip, I can quickly dispatch the bug and head into Pewter City. But Kingler is still only level 6. What I'm relying on here is the fact that Bubble is going to do 4 times damage to Brock's Pokemon. Even though Kingler has a lowish special stat, I still think that Bubble should be enough for the Rock Specialist. Geodude is first. I go for Bubble, and it does more than half with a critical hit. Geodude attacks with Tackle, taking Kingler down to orange health. I did not heal before this fight because I didn't think that I needed it. I knock out the Geodude, level up to 8, and then Onix comes in. What I'm scared of here is that it's going to trap me in Bind over and over again because Onix is faster than Kingler, or that it goes for Bide on turn 1 and then survives through 2 bubbles, unleashing damage, knocking out Kingler in 1 turn. However, I get a first turn critical hit, and I 2-shot the Onix, so even though it did go for Bind and Bide, it would have had to use multiple binds and go for Bide on turn 1. It didn't do either of those things, so I end up pulling through with an easy victory. Kingler gets a Brock split of 3 minutes even. I have to say that Route 3 is a little bit annoying for Kingler. Since we can beat Brock so early into the game with no additional training, even though we have an outrageous physical attack stat and we got a 12.5% boost to it from Brock's badge, I still have to 3-shot this Caterpie on the first bug catcher's team. Kingler's high defense is actually really useful here because I'm not taking much damage from Pokemon like Rattata, which has the same type attack bonus when using Quick Attack. Going through this section of the game on minimum battles is often scary, especially for water types that know Bubble. I'm thinking about Poliwag because it just takes too much damage and it's not dealing enough in return. So Vice Grip in combination with high defense makes this section of the game fairly easy for Kingler, even though it's not knocking out Pokemon as fast as I would like. I chose to take on the Lass on Route 3 instead of the Bug Catcher because I don't think I need the extra experience. Just inside of Mount Moon, there is the Water Gun TM, and with Kingler, I'm going to pick it up. Although, I want to talk about this move later on. For now, it represents a doubling in effective power when compared with Bubble. And while Water Gun's effective power is 5 points higher than Vice Grip's, physical damage is still going to be preferable, since Kingler's attack is more than double its special stat at this point in the run. However, I can at least leverage my water moves to do some additional training quickly inside of the cave. Fighting this hiker, I can one-shot all 3 3 of his Pokemon, and I think this is a good choice for Kingler, at least in the first run, because I don't want to go into Cerulean City too underleveled. I want to make 2 notes for later on in the video. Number 1, this coughing on the Super Nerds team takes 3 turns to knock out. Number 2, Jesse and James have a Meowth which knows Growl to lower attack, followed by a Coughing, which we just saw does pretty well against physical moves from Kingler. In this case, no problems, but we will come back to these fights later. For now, I'm heading into Cerulean City, and I have to choose between fighting Misty now or going up against the rival. I honestly chose to go up against the rival since I have special moves, and this typically means that Pokemon are good against his team. I'm going to one-shot the Sandshrew, at least that's what I was hoping for, but Water Gun can't even pull it off with the same type attack bonus. Sandshrew survives and goes for Sand Attack, luckily missing. Kingler is just really not a good special attacker. One alternative here for the Sandshrew is fighting Misty first, earning Bubble Beam, and then one-shotting the Sandshrew with the better water type move. I think for my second playthrough, that's what I'm going to be doing in this section of the game. After all, Misty has AI modification 3, so she's always going to be attacking Kingler with normal moves. She's never going to be choosing Bubble Beam with Starmie, which definitely would do more damage than Tackle. On Route 25, I fight the Hiker instead of the Junior Trainer for more experience. His Geodude are all one-shots with Water Gun, and I can two-shot the Machop using the same move. I wanted to save PP for Vice Grip. After all, the Oddish Lass is coming up next. She's the first mandatory trainer that has Grass-type Pokemon which know Grass-type moves. Luckily for Kingler, its Vice Grip one-shots the Oddish, and it never needs to get hit by Absorb. Prior to fighting Misty, I take on the Pecking Junior Trainer. This is a moment where Kingler could get confused and deal damage to itself. This is especially bad when the enemy is lowering your defense, like this Goldeen is. However, in most cases, Kingler isn't going to have to worry too much about confusion, since it has a high defense stat, so even though its attack is very high, it's not going to deal that much damage to itself in confusion. Until later in the run, when obviously we're going to teach Swords Dance. Then confusion will become a major threat. Okay, up next is Misty. Staryu is first. I go for Vice Grip, and I am able to two-shot, taking 3 damage in total from Staryu's Tackle. Kingler levels up to 22, Starmie comes in, its Tackle does 5 hit points of damage, and it looks like Vice Grip is going to 4-shot provided Misty does not use Harden or an X Defend. This is one downside of Kingler fighting Misty, especially at an earlier level. The more time I give this Starmie, the more impervious it becomes to Kingler's attacks. I think if she sets up too many Hardens, I just have to wait until I get a critical hit, but I'm never really going to lose to the Starmie since it's doing such little damage. In this case, it doesn't even take that long. Now, just in case you didn't believe me about Bubble Beam's damage ranges here against Kingler, Tackle does between 5 and 6 damage per turn, and Bubble Beam does between 12 and 15. So if Misty was able to use her water-type moves, she would more than double her damage against Kingler, and this fight would definitely be difficult. With Misty defeated, I get a second gym split of 11 minutes and 12 seconds, and I also earn the TM for Bubble Beam, which I teach right away in the place of Leer. I do immediately use this move against the Machop on the Rockets team in Cerulean City, but Bubble Beam here only does 1 more damage than Vice Grip. Literally 1 more damage. They both knock the Machop out in 2 turns. And then for the Drowsy, obviously using physical moves makes more sense. I get a Gen 1 miss with Vice Grip, Drowsy goes for Confusion, and does a ton of damage to Kingler with a critical hit. My next Vice Grip takes the Drowsy to orange health, it goes for Hypnosis, and then Kingler starts to snooze. Oh, this is looking really bad. Luckily, the Drowsy is using Pound while I'm asleep, and then Kingler does wake up. Drowsy whiffs its turn trying to use Disable, and I knock it out. If it had gone for 2 more confusions, that would have been my first blackout. Sandy is not annoying because Vice Grip is able to one-shot Oliver Pidgey, at least at level 23. With her out of the way, this is where everything changes for Kingler. On the SS Hand, I defeat the optional Junior Trainer and pick up the TM for Body Slam. This move is so much better than Vice Grip. Vice Grip does not have a secondary effect. Body Slam has a 30% chance to paralyze the opponent. Vice Grip has 55 base power, Body Slam has 85. With it, I completely crush the rivals team. Bubble Beam is useful here against the Sandshrew so that I can one-shot and avoid Sand Attack. However, with the rival out of the way, I'm a little bit worried. Surge is coming up next, and we do not have a good special stat. Kingler is also slower than Raichu. What I think this means is if Surge chooses Thunderbolt, Kingler is going to instantly lose. So, will the man, the myth, the legend choose the move he needs to win? No, he chooses X speed. Raichu is already faster, well played. I go for Body Slam, it does more than half. It doesn't paralyze, and then Raichu chooses Mega Kick, which I don't care about because I have ridiculous defense, so Kingler knocks out his only Pokemon and wins against the Electric-type specialist. That's a third gym split of 14 minutes and 31 seconds. The Rock Tunnel Gauntlet is next. For most Pokemon, especially water types, there are challenges here. Starmie, for example, has extreme difficulty against the Wrapping Lass, but Kingler just one-shots all of her Pokemon with Body Slam. Some water types get slowed down by the Pokemaniac since they have to take multiple turns to knock out the Slowpoke. This is the case for Kingler. I can't one-shot with Body Slam, but I'm two-shotting, so they're not that slow. The Status Condition Junior Trainer, as per her namesake, can cause many problems, but in this case, I just one-shot everything with Body Slam. I have Bubble Beam for the self-destructing Hiker, and the finishing Junior Trainer's Oddish gets one-shot by Body Slam as well. This is a really easy section of the game for Kingler. I didn't even have to open my bag to use a single healing item. In Celadon City, I'm going to skip going to the Rocket Hideout because I don't think Kingler needs any additional rare candies. I'm going to get Swords Dance, and that move is pretty good. Because of it, I was feeling very confident in this solo run. In the department store, I want to mention a standard buy for these solo runs. I typically purchase between 9 and 10 Super Repels. Today I bought 10 just to be a little bit safe for my first playthrough, but I will come back to this number in my follow-up playthrough. At the top of the tower, I pick up a Freshwater, but I'm going to skip Ice Beam. Using an Ice-type move with Kingler's low special just doesn't feel very good. Right now, I'm just going to be spamming Body Slam. I might as well save time and not teach an additional move to my Pokemon when I don't think I'm going to be using it. Also, more on this later. I purchased 2 Carbos for Kingler because these are the generic vitamins that I get in most solo challenges. Speed tends to be an issue in the mid-game for Pokemon in yellow version. I did not know at the time, but this is in fact the perfect vitamin buy for Kingler. As I use items and rearrange stuff in my bag on Route 16, I just want to talk about ghosts for a second. What options does Kingler have against them? Well, it could use a water move, Crabhammer, Bubble Beam, Water Gun, or Surf. It could use an ice move, Ice Beam, or Blizzard. Or it's gonna have to use Bide or Mimic. That's it. It cannot hit ghost types with anything else. Its options are even more limited for Pokemon Tower. It's not a high enough level to have Crabhammer. I can't access Surf without completing Pokemon Tower, so my only options are Bubble Beam, Water Gun, Ice Beam, and Bide. Of course, Bubble Beam out of all of these is going to deal the most damage. It has slightly higher effective power when compared with Ice Beam. But to get to the ghosts, I have to beat the rival. This one's actually pretty easy, although fairly slow. There is some risk at the beginning of this battle if the Furo goes for Mirror Move and I'm choosing Body Slam. Potentially Kingler could get paralyzed, causing the remainder of the fight to slow down and potentially end up in a loss. But I think the likelihood for that happening is quite low. The Magnemite isn't really good. I one-shot with a critical hit Body Slam. I two-shot the Shelder, which is just going to use either Tackle or Supersonic. I'm not scared about Confusion yet, so this Pokemon isn't really that good for the rival. Sandshrews next, Bubble Beam one-shots, and the Eevee isn't really good. It's going to evolve into Flareon eventually, and then it's still not going to be good against Kingler, so I don't anticipate that the rival's ace is going to cause any problems. Okay, Agatha Jr. She has Ghastly. They take 3 hits to knock out with Bubble Beam when Kingler is level 29. She can paralyze with Lick, confuse with Confuse Ray, and do a lot of damage with Nightshade. But Kingler really doesn't care. It doesn't get paralyzed by Lick, it knocks out the first Ghastly, and then crits the second one, taking only 5 turns in this battle, which should have been 6. Okay, so Agatha Jr. isn't going to be a problem. As soon as I defeat Jesse and James clearing Pokemon Tower, Kingler scuttles over to Saffron City because it wants to go to Silph to pick up the Swords Dance TM. Before picking it up, I did battle the guy with Machoke to get the extra rare candy. There's also a Carbos in this room, which I'm also going to pick up. I fight the mandatory Arbok trainer next to get access to the card key, and then I decided to do one optional battle against this scientist with 4 Pokemon. I just want to emphasize here that without Swords Dance, I have to two-shot a bunch of his Pokemon, the Magneton, the Coughing, as well as the Wheezing. The only Pokemon I knock out in a single turn is Magnemite. This training for Kingler is really not that efficient. Maybe having Swords Dance first is the better play so that I take less turns in battles like this. Now, one mild annoyance of getting Swords Dance, which you won't know if you don't do a lot of these solo runs, is that once you use the teleporter pad over here, there is a trainer sitting just north of it by this door. If you push up to move towards the door, you will battle this trainer. So I have to kind of juke to the side, move up, then move over, precisely time my input, move through the door, and then precisely time my input to fit into this little gap between the wall and the table, which is where Swords Dance is. I really strongly dislike having to do this movement, and if I accidentally fumble or get nervous, there's the chance that I'll bump into the trainer. trainer. I didn't have any issues today. I pick up the Swords Dance TM, and of course I'm teaching it right away, in the place of Water Gun. I wasn't sure if I could beat the rival right away, so I fought some additional trainers, leveling Kingler up to 34. You can also learn Stomp at this level, and this move is definitely better than Vice Grip, so I might as well learn it now. Before the rival though, I am going to choose to use some rare candies. I have a total of 5 right now, so I went from 34 up to 39. This isn't a damage rounding threshold, but the level is high enough, especially with Swords Dance, that I think the rival should be manageable. First of all, I'm going to set up Swords Dance against the Sand Slash. If it goes for Sand Attack, I'll just reset because it'll be too annoying to play the fight out if I have my accuracy dropped. It can't do much damage with either Poison Sting or Swift, but Slash is going to do a lot since it's critting. It's also worth noting in Generation 1, despite what the game's text tells you, Surge's Badge boosts your defense stat. So every time I use Swords Dance, I am also increasing Kingler's defense. But this doesn't apply when Sand Slash goes for Slash, because these moves bypass all stat changes, including badge boosts, even the base ones. I set up to +4, and then I one-shot the Sand Slash. Now, will I be able to one-shot the Cloister and the Magneton? Cloister can't really do much to me, so I'm not worried about it. In this case, I crit, bypassing my positive stat changes, and I have to two-shot. However, the Cloister just misses with Supersonic, which is the only move it can use against water types. Magneton goes down to a single hit, and then against Kadabra at level 39, because I purchased 2 Carbos and used the one from Silph, I have just enough speed to move first. Body Slam one-shots. Flareon is last, and despite having a water type move and being a water type, the correct choice here is to use Body Slam, because Flareon has ridiculous special, but its defense is its weakest stat. The remaining trainers in Silph are really easy for Kingdra. Kingdra? Have I been saying Kingdra this whole time? I'm starting to second guess myself. This is like Rhyhorn and Rhydon. I always mix those two up, or Dusclops and Duskull. Anyway, Kingler doesn't have issues here. Next, I go to the Safari Zone. There's another Carbos that I'm going to pick up here. More on this one later. We have to talk about Vitams extensively in the follow-up run. The most important item though in the Safari Zone is definitely Surf. And for Kingler, I don't think that this is a good move. It has low special, and Surf is really not that good in the late game, so I'm going to hold off on teaching this move. I would prefer to get through the game without it. I went back to Erika's gym next, and while fighting the Cool Trainer, I leveled up to 42. This is where Kingler can learn its signature move, Crabhammer. I'm going to put this in the place of Stomp for now, keeping Bubble Beam as well, just because it's a little bit more accurate. But I do think that Crabhammer is going to have a significant place during this playthrough, but not right away since Erika is next. Unless her Tangela can knock out Kingler quickly, I shouldn't have problems here. I go for Swords Dance, and Tangela goes for Mega Drain. As soon as the damage calculated, I knew that Kingler wasn't going to have problems. I could set up to +4 if I wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. Body Slam now one-shots the Tangela, and it is the bulkiest Pokemon she has. Both Weepinbell and Gloom are easy to clean up. I went to the Fuchsia City Gym next, and it's here that I need to decide how I want to face Koga. There are 3 potential paths to victory. Number 1, and least likely to win, is wait for the first Venonat to miss Sleep Powder while setting up with Swords Dance. Or if one Swords Dance gives enough damage, wait until Kingler wakes up and then sweep his team. Number 2, one-shot the first Venonat with a move like Crabhammer, move on to the second Venonat which does not have Sleep Powder and set up there. And number 3, against this mandatory juggler, I could buy time for, say, the Hypno to go for Poison Gas. If Kingler is poisoned, then the Venonat will not choose Sleep Powder, and as a result, I'll be able to set up at the beginning of the fight for free. I don't know what my damage range is with Crabhammer yet, but I also don't want to waste time during this juggler. It can take so long for him to choose Poison Gas and for the move to actually hit. Its accuracy is terrible, so I would have to spam Swords Dance just waiting for good luck. And if I didn't get it, then I would have to knock out the Hypno anyway because I didn't save before this fight. Instead of trying to get poisoned, I just finish this fight as soon as I can and move on. And that means I am locked into option number 2 against Koga. Moment of truth, does Crabhammer have enough damage to one-shot the Venonat? The answer is no, it doesn't if it misses. Luckily, Venonat just gets an X attack instead of attacking. I go for Crabhammer again. Okay, is this enough damage? With a critical hit, the answer is yes. The second Venonat comes in, I go for Swords Dance. I wasn't sure just how many of these I needed, so I played a little bit safely, setting up to +4. Then Body Slam one-shots both of the following Venonat, and I move on to the Venomoth. It is faster, but it just gets an X attack, Kingler hits with Body Slam, and Koga is defeated. With him out of the way, I now have the Soul Badge, and a 12.5% boost to Kingler's speed stat, which raises it from 98 up to 110. If you really know these games well, you will realize that everything has lined up perfectly for Kingler here. Knowing this, I didn't want to do additional training. The two factors I'm looking at are Kingler's level and its speed stat. Its level is 44, meaning with repels, I can skip most of the Raticate in Pokemon Mansion, saving time. And its speed stat is 110, which is 2 points faster than Blaine's Ninetales, a Pokemon which can use Confuse Ray, and that would be awful if I had, say, 107 speed, because then it would confuse me, Kingler would use Swords Dance, and then potentially I could do a bunch of damage to myself in confusion on follow-up turns. Or Ninetales could attack turn 1, I set up Swords Dance, then it uses Confuse Ray, and Kingler hits itself on the first turn it had boosted damage. You might be thinking, why worry about Blaine? Well, I will have you know that Blaine is one of the best gym leaders in Pokemon Yellow, even when you're using a water type. Do you maybe want some proof? Well, let's watch my attempt against Blaine. Ninetales is first. Obviously, I want to set up Swords Dance here for two reasons. It's going to boost my attack and allow me to one-shot his Pokemon, and number two, it is going to badge boost my speed stats so that I move first against the Rapidash and the Arcanine, two Pokemon that I am currently underspeeding. I go for Swords Dance, Ninetales uses Flamethrower, gets a critical hit, and does more than half damage to Kingler. Also, it burns, cutting my attack so that the Swords Dance was useless. For this reason, I went for a second one, then Ninetales confuses Kingler, and on the next turn, it hits itself and faints, losing to Blaine's first Pokemon. So the water type got its first reset to the fire type specialist. This is not surprising at all, honestly. If it wasn't Surge, it was going to be here. I tried again, this time setting up to +4. I did get confused, hit myself, but Kingler luckily knocks out the Ninetales. It's out of confusion by this point, it one-shots the Rapidash and moves on to the Arcanine. Unfortunately, I level up to 45 right before this, which is not really that nice. Then Arcanine uses Flamethrower, doing a good amount of damage, and Body Slam can't one-shot. By the way, that is not because of the level up. Swords Dance correctly recalculates my attack stat, so when I leveled up, my damage actually increased against the Arcanine, especially because I went over a damage rounding threshold. What this means is I'm going to need +6 in order to knock out his final Pokemon in one turn. Maybe there's an alternative here. What if I go for Crabhammer and never set up against Blaine's Pokemon? Well, Crabhammer just barely doesn't have enough damage to knock out the Ninetales, and I get confused anyway. I knock out the Ninetales on the next turn, I hit myself twice against the Rapidash, but then Crabhammer one-shots. So I have made it back to the Arcanine, but I don't think my position is better. I actually think it's worse in this case. Instead of using Body Slam, a move that has 100% accuracy, I am now having to rely on a move that has 85% accuracy, and I will be two-shotting the Arcanine, because I'm going to crit and it's not going to do enough damage. Luckily for me, Arcanine chooses Fire Blast and misses on turn 1. Crabhammer hits and does roughly the same amount that Body Slam with +4 was doing. Then Arcanine chooses Flamethrower, Kingler survives on 21 hit points and hits one final Crabhammer. It should have been a Bubble Beam for accuracy, but it doesn't matter because Crabhammer hits. With that, Blaine is defeated. Next I head back to Saffron City because I still need to face Sabrina. I pick up the Mimic TM because for Kingler this is going to be very important against one specific trainer. Sabrina is next. This battle is kind of ugly. I'm slower than the Kadabra and the Alakazam, but I can one-shot the Abra and move first, avoiding Flash. For the Kadabra, I have a choice. I either go for damage here, knocking out the Kadabra, and then I underspeed and I won't one-shot the Alakazam, or I set up Swords Dance here and then I one-shot the Alakazam and I outspeed the Kadabra. I went for the second play, and Kadabra hits with a massive Psychic. It's really good that I now outspeed it and can one-shot on the next turn, but the problem is I'm not faster than it with only one turn of setup. So I just have to hope that it does something useless, like this turn 1 recover. Okay, please look at the time right now. Inside Giovanni's gym, after finishing the mandatory trainers, the clock is at 33 minutes. Kingler is tearing through Pokemon Yellow. I don't want to slow things down by fighting optional trainers. Instead, I'll just fight Giovanni at level 46. Immediately there are a bunch of problems. I underspeed the Dugtrio and the Persian, I can get hit by Sand Attack or Fissure on turn 1 as a result, or Dugtrio can use Dig, wasting my time, making me regret not choosing Swords Dance. Dig does roughly 1/3, and my Crabhammer knocks out his first Pokemon. I'm moving on here to Persian to set up Swords Dance because I knew that I would level up after the Dugtrio because of how close I was to 47. I want badge boosts for the rest of the fight. And I even get one extra one from Persian going for Screech. This doesn't help Kingler's attack stat, because I'm using Swords Dance after the badge boost, but it does help its speed as well as its special. And now that I think about it, those stats are not really useful for this fight, outside of the Ride-On, which I'm pretty sure Bubble Beam would have one-shot anyway. I knock out the Persian at +4, one-shot the Nidoqueen, and then barely fail the knockout on the Nidoking. It hits with Thunder, and despite my special badge boosts, which are now important, I don't have enough health. So the solution here is knock out the Dugtrio, move on to the Persian, set up to +6 with Swords Dance, and then one-shot the Nidoking. After that, Ride-On is last. I had to choose between Crabhammer and Bubble Beam. I went for the more consistent option, hoping it would have enough damage, and yes, of course it does. Now, one thing I love about playing Generation 1 is that any fight, no matter how confident you are, can always end up in a loss. Against the rival, it is so easy to set up Swords Dance on his Sandslash. He's just not going to do enough damage. I can go all the way to +6 here, provided he isn't spamming Slash. Then, Bubble Beam knocks out his first Pokemon, Body Slam takes care of Execute, even the Cloyster, which is outstanding defensively, goes down to a single Body Slam. Magneton follows, Kingler, Gen 1 misses Body Slam, gets hit by Thunder Wave, Magneton follows up with Thunder Shock, Kingler can't move because of paralysis, Magneton follows up with a second Thunder Shock, and that's it. I think this fight is the perfect example of how you can always lose in Generation 1. It seems like Kingler is going to dominate this rival, but then it can just fall apart. I should mention there's another way to lose here. If I critical hit the Magneton, I will only do between 82 and 96% damage with Body Slam. So Magneton would survive and then be able to paralyze me with Thunder Wave, which is exactly what happens in the second fight. However, this time I paralyzed the Magneton with Body Slam, so I'm still able to move first against it. Because of that, I knock it out with Body Slam, move on to the Kadabra after saying no to Harden. Of course, I don't need that badge boosting move. Then Kadabra just goes for Reflect, which does not shore up its defenses enough, and the only Pokemon left over is Flareon. Because of type effectiveness, it is only ever going to use Smog or Leer. So Kingler still defeats the rival, even though it got unlucky in its second attempt as well. Inside Victory Road, I pick up the rare candy. I'm level 49 right now, and I do have a lot of experience towards level 50, but I didn't care. I just used 5 rare candies boosting Kingler to level 54 because this is the perfect level to go into Lorelei at. The reason being that I will now level up after Lorelei, Agatha, and Lance's final Pokemon. Also that other hiker, but he doesn't matter. And this means with Swords Dance, I will retain my badge boosts through the duration of all of those fights. The only exception to this being the champion. I'm gonna level up right before the Cloyster, but I don't expect that that's gonna be the worst thing in the world for Kingler. Anyways, let's get into the Elite Four. Lorelei's Dugong is first. This Pokemon is not really that good. I could have attacked it and let it go to sleep with Rest, but it's just doing useless things so often, using Rest when it's at full health, that I just simply press A on Swords Dance, and then use Body Slam to one-shot it after I get to +6. Body Slam crits the Cloyster, so I have to two-shot. It actually crits 2 times in a row, and this is still a two-shot. Slowbro's next. I don't need to mimic anything here, which is really refreshing. Body Slam takes care of it, the Jinx, and the Lapras all in one hit each. Okay, I have water moves for this guy. Bubble Beam's pretty good. I set up Swords Dance once, then I can one-shot the fighting types with the exception of Machamp. It feels like Kingler would be weak to fighting type moves because it's a crab, and crabs feel very snappable. Anyways, it's not weak to them, so I'm not even scared about submission here. If he did choose it and get a critical hit, it would do between 66 and 79% damage. This is where everything changes. Agatha is by far the most difficult battle with Kingler in this run, and I know that because I played Krabby before. Agatha was awful when I played it, and I ended up using Crabhammer against her. But for Kingler, I really don't think that this is the best option, even though that's how I decided to fight her in this first run. The idea behind the Crabhammer strategy is really simple. I don't want to waste time using other moves like Mimic or Swords Dance. Instead, I just want to attack right away and do a bunch of damage to the ghosts. Even with critical hits and the same type attack bonus, I have to 3-shot the first Gengar. This exposes Kingler to paralysis from Lick, Mega Drain for super effective damage from Gengar, and I can also get hit by Confuse Ray and then damage myself. Agatha ends up switching out her lead Pokemon, sending in Golbat, and by this point I was in a terrible position. I did try to play this fight out, and I was successful making it to the final Gengar after 2-shotting the Haunter and 1-shotting the Arbok with a critical hit Body Slam. However, I'm going to have to 3-hit this final Gengar as well, giving it lots of chances to go for moves like Psychic or Hypnosis. While I do bring it to low red health, it goes for Psychic and Kingler faints. Gyarados. I tried again with this strategy hoping that it would work, and the answer is no, it's not going to. So I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna try using the strategy that I think is actually better. I just was hoping that Kingler could make use of its signature move. Instead, we're gonna go the generic route, teaching Mimic in the place of Bubble Beam, and then stealing Lick from the first Gengar. Turn 1, I want to make sure that I steal Lick and I don't set up with Swords Dance. This is because Gengar can go for Confuse Ray. Oh, thank you, Agatha, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. In this case, because I used Mimic on turn 1, if Kingler hits itself, it's going to deal less self-inflicted damage. In most cases, you want to set up Swords Dance first and then use Mimic so you're triggering badge boosts along the way. But in this case, it's the inverse. We always want to be going for Mimic first, followed by Swords Dance to reduce damage from confusion. Once I got to +4, I use Lick, break Gengar's substitute. It goes for Confuse Ray again, Kingler hits itself and does a lot of damage, but not as much as I was expecting. I follow up with Lick, knocking the Gengar out. Now I can use Body Slam to one-shot the Golbat. I get another Gen 1 miss here. There have been too many of these in this playthrough. Luckily, this one is not going to cause a reset. Body Slam doesn't one-shot the Golbat because it gets a critical hit. Okay, that's frustrating. Luckily, confusion wears off. I knock out the Golbat. Lick is able to one-shot the Haunter. Body Slam now without a critical hit or with a critical hit will take care of the Arbok, leaving only the final Gengar. So at +4, am I able to one-shot? The answer is no. Gengar survives with red health, but instead of attacking, Agatha chooses to use a Super Potion. That gives Kingler the win in what should have been the most difficult fight. Lance is not really that good against Kingler. I can set up Swords Dance on the Gyarados. It's never going to choose Hydro Pump, so it's going to be using either Dragon Rage, Leer, or Hyper Beam. Dragon Rage doesn't do that much damage. Leer is a little bit scary if I'm going to get hit by Hyper Beam on turn 2, but in the case that it doesn't Leer me, then I've badge boosted and Hyper Beam does less damage. Plus, Hyper Beam gives me one more turn to set up with Swords Dance. I get to +6, and then I crush the Gyarados and both Dragonair. I'm not even trying to mimic Ice Beam here, I don't need it. I can use Crabhammer to knock out the Aerodactyl, which I outspeed due to badge boosts, and then Body Slam to take care of the Dragonite. Time for the champion. Like I said before, the strategy here is the inverse of what it was on Agatha. Swords Dance right away to reduce damage from Poison Sting, Earthquake, and Fury swipes, then Mimic to steal Earthquake after I've set up. At this point, Kingler has 855 attack, which is getting pretty close to the maximum value in Generation 1, which is 999. I don't even think super effective damage against Sandslash with Crabhammer is worth it. I could miss, so there's downside, and it also prints extra text saying that it was super effective, wasting frames. I use Earthquake and one-shot the Sandslash, so this was the right choice. Because of badge boosts, I am faster than the Alakazam, and either Body Slam or Earthquake will get the job done. I crit the Exeggutor, allowing it to set up with Leech Seed. A little bit annoying, but not the end of the world. Earthquake one-shots Magneton. Cloyster is next. I crit here, not one-shotting, so I do get health sapped by Leech Seed. However, the Cloyster is locked into Spike Cannon because its other moves are viewed as not very effective against Kingler. This means Leech Seed is only going to trigger once. That allows me to get another Earthquake in and finish it. However, the Flareon is actually a little bit of a threat. It's going to choose between Reflect or Quick Attack, and Quick Attack can do decent damage, but Kingler survives on red health, hits Earthquake, and Flareon faints. In my first playthrough with it, Kingler gets a time of 42 minutes and 38 seconds. With 6 resets, 0 blackouts, it finished the game at level 59 with a game time of 2 hours and 37 minutes. Back to the question that I asked at the beginning of this video. If you said that Kingler was going to be an absolute monster in Pokemon Yellow, then you were right. This thing had an exceptional first playthrough. It beat the game at a very low level, and I was so close to minimum battles throughout the duration of this run. I really only mixed in a few extra people to get access to items, and the 2 trainers that I fought for extra experience, I'm not even sure if they're required. The Hiker in Mount Moon, as well as the one scientist in Silph. Kingler was so good, I didn't even battle the biker boss on Cycling Road. I literally fought no one there, which is very rare. Kingler just doesn't care. Okay, follow-up playthrough time. Zealouspawn helped me optimize this one, and I noticed something when I first downloaded his root file and started looking at it. He had accidentally unchecked the self-destructing Hiker, who is mandatory inside of Rock Tunnel. When I re-enabled the self-destructing Hiker, I started thinking about different ways to optimize the experience routing throughout the mid-game, and this led me down the path to try to remove every single optional trainer that Zealouspawn had added to the route for experience. We also got really detailed with this route, talking about when we should be reordering the badge bag and when we should be, say, using Carbos, because we don't want to use 2 Carbos opening the bag twice. Instead, we want to use the Carbos all at once when they're all stacked up in the inventory, wasting as little time as possible. So I'm going to get quite detail-oriented with this follow-up playthrough. But if I didn't do that, what else would I talk about? Kingler is just sort of get Swords Dance, spam the move, and then pray for Agatha. That really is the summary of this route. In Viridian Forest, I debated skipping this potion because the text box takes longer than just walking around the item ball. It turns out that picking up the item makes more sense, because then when I battle the mandatory bug catcher, even though Kingler gets damaged, I don't care. I can skip the Pokemon Center in Pewter City, which is going to take roughly 6 to 7 seconds because I have to walk over to it and then watch the animation. I can use the singular potion to heal before Brock, who I am fighting once again on minimum battles. Because I didn't have encounters turned off during the first playthrough, and I do have encounters turned off now, I'm going to get a major time advantage in the Brock split alone. Kingler is 37 seconds faster than the first run. In the Mart's Sell Bide, it is the only item you'll have in your bag if you pick up just the 1 potion in Viridian Forest, and then if I buy more potions, they're going to be at the top of the inventory, making it very fast for me to heal Kingler later on. I'm also going to purchase 3 antidotes, since poison can cause some problems for Kingler, which I'm about to talk about, but we don't need to purchase Paralyze heals. The 2 instances where Kingler is going to get paralyzed are both solved by full restores that we can pick up in the overworld for free. Last on Route 3, I do want to mention this fight as well as the following fight against the bug catcher. The reason is because I can use Bubble here to knock out some of the Pokemon in higher turn counts and then skip the heal before Mount Moon. Then I have enough PP using Leer and Vice Grip together to get through the 2 mandatory trainers in Mount Moon, and my first heal in the entire run can be in Cerulean City. I played this route a few times with Kingler, and it honestly just feels a little bit too tedious and micromanagey. While I would save maybe 2, 3, or 4 seconds, I am bleeding time using Bubble, which takes multiple turns to knock out most Pokemon. In the end, I decided that healing before Mount Moon made the most sense, so I can just spam Vice Grip everywhere. Inside Mount Moon, I am going to save time, no optional trainers, and I'm also not going to pick up Water Gun. It is just useless, and I don't need to battle the Hiker. There's no reason to fight him, since I'm still going to 3-shot the Coughing on the Super Nerds team. And this is where we need to talk about the Coughing in this section of the game. They can be awful for Kingler. This is why I want to buy the antidotes. I do not want to get poisoned by the Coughing on Jesse and James's team, and then blackout before reaching the Cerulean City Pokemon Center. Also, the Meowth using Growl can make the Coughing take an age to knock out, which is so annoying. I did have some restarts for this run here, but it's just not that painful because it only takes 5 minutes to get back to Jesse and James. And the route up until here is so simple to execute, especially if you're doing the heal before Mount Moon. Previously I skipped Misty, but this doesn't make sense. Fighting her right away at level 15 is the best thing for Kingler to do. This fight can take a very long time, as it does here with Misty using a ton of Hardens as well as X-Defend. But if Kingler gets critical hits, it can speed the fight up, and Starmie just isn't doing enough damage. Bubble Beam one-shots the rival Sandshrew, so now there's no risk of Sand Attack. Now, I didn't only think about minimum battles for Kingler, I also thought about minimum Pokemon. We can skip the Hiker on Route 25, who has 4 Pokemon, and fight the Junior Trainer who only has 2, saving a little bit of battle time in this section of the run. This change, in combination with the lack of the Hiker in Mount Moon, means that Kingler is no longer level 23 to fight Sandy. This reduces its damage range with Vice Grip to a 64.9% chance to one-shot, which means it could fall apart here to a Sand Attack. But in my experience, it never did. It has so much defense, it's going to have enough time to roll more damage and eventually knock out her Pokemon. On the Junior Trainer right before Body Slam, I switched Leer into spot number 1. Also, I do want to mention that Vice Grip is now out of PP. I did not heal in Cerulean City after I beat all of the trainers on Route 25. And since I did Misty first, I just simply squeezed by the rocket and went south to Vermilion City, knowing that I could replenish my PP by teaching Body Slam in the place of Leer. I'm also intentionally holding on to Bubble right now. Kingler needs the Gentleman Candy. It's also going to need to do a little bit of fancy footwork in the mid-game in order to get one more rare candy. The rival's easy, Surge is also easy, but if he does use Thunderbolt, Kingler instantly loses. Body Slam has a 76.7% chance to 2-shot the Raichu, and there is upside for paralysis here. In the department store, I skipped Ice Beam last time, but this time I think it's very important to pick up. Another thing I want to mention is I'm going to purchase 11 Super Repels. In Generation 1, when you reset the game, you lose whatever repel you had active. So if I use a repel right here in Pokemon Tower, and then save in front of Agatha Jr. before fighting her, if I take the reset because of bad luck against the ghosts, then I lose my repel and it will run out during Victory Road. So having one more compensates for this downside. Kingler also doesn't have to give anything up to get one more Super Repel. Now, the reason to run Ice Beam against Agatha Jr., this is the only fight it's useful for, by the way, is because I want upside to freeze her ghost outposts. If I freeze them, then the battle becomes significantly easier. In most playthroughs, I was expecting to have one reset here, but in this case, I get through with none. Upon clearing Pokemon Tower, I'm going to go down Cycling Road, picking up the rare candy from the grass. This is the fancy footwork I was mentioning before. I'm not going to fight any trainers here, and I also don't want to go into the Safari Zone because Kingler can run into a bunch of wild Pokemon there, wasting its time. The only advantages for the Safari Zone is one additional Carbos as well as the Surf HM, but I don't strictly need these. I'm able to pick up the third and final Carbos of the playthrough here in Silph, right before a rare candy, which I need anyway. Then, after grabbing the card key, I am going to skip this scientist, head through the teleport pad, and move north, fighting the guy that I complained about having to dodge before. He is really convenient to battle for Kingler. Look at its level. It's partway through level 31, and he has 2 ground-type Pokemon, which take super effective damage from Ice Beam and Bubble Beam. I can one-shot the Sandshrew and 2-shot the Sandslash, and this experience is perfect. It levels Kingler up to 32. So I get away from having to do some awful overworld motion, I get the level that I want, and I fight less trainers in battle, plus I don't have to go off the beaten path to fight an additional trainer somewhere else. Of course, now I pick up Swords Dance, and I'm going to use rare candies from level 32 up to level 38 before fighting the rival. The solution here is pretty simple. I'm just going to use Swords Dance until +6 and then sweep his entire team. There is one downside here, which is Kadabra outspeeds Kingler. I actually forgot to use a Carbos prior to this battle, which I should have used. If I had gone for it, then I would have had a speed tie with the Kadabra. The reason to go to the Safari Zone would be to one-shot the Sandslash on the previous Rockets team with Surf, and also to get the Carbos there to outspeed this Kadabra. But both of those things aren't important enough to warrant running into wild Pokemon wasting time. Prior to Erika, I fight the Beauty instead of the Cool Trainer. Kingler doesn't need experience, and it can one-shot the Execute. One Swords Dance for Erika is all that's needed. I already explained the strategy for Koga: Crabhammer followed by 2 Swords Dances on the next Venonat, and then one-shot on the Venomoth. What I really want to emphasize here is that once I defeat Koga, I'm level 43, which is 1 level lower than last time. And also note that Kingler is poisoned. To get rid of the status condition to ensure that I can walk around the overworld, I'm going to heal in the Fuchsia City Pokemon Center, then I go to the Safari Zone, dig out of the Safari Zone, bringing me back to the Fuchsia City Pokemon Center, then I can jump over the ledge, pick up the Warden rare candy, and use this item right away to be level 44 to dodge the Raticate encounters in Pokemon Mansion. I love how this section of the run works out. And because of the 3 Carbos in this run, as well as the additional rare candy after Koga, Kingler is now faster than Blaine's Ninetales. Does this make Blaine easy? No, he's still brutally difficult. I actually lose here 3 times in this playthrough. I am making one subtle mistake here, which is setting up Swords Dance 3 times against the Ninetales. I should not be doing this. Instead, I should set up twice, then I have a one-shot on the Ninetales using Body Slam, and I should squeeze in my last Swords Dance against the Rapidash. Because of the 3 Pokemon Blaine has, Rapidash is going to be the least effective against Kingler, just because this water type has a high defense stat. The only time that isn't the case is if the Ninetales spams a bunch of Tail Whips, in which case maybe you want to use the last Swords Dance against the Ninetales and just reset quickly if you get bad luck with Confusion, just because Rapidash has good physical attack and it knows both Stomp and Takedown. There is an alternative way to fight Blaine, which is just spamming water type moves. For example, Crabhammer has a 72.2% chance to 2-shot Ninetales as well as Arcanine, and it has an 82.5% chance on Rapidash. This is a total of 5 turns during the battle, provided you don't miss once. With Swords Dance, it's a 6-turn battle. I think if I come back and play this run again, I will experiment more with the Crabhammer strategy. That said, there are ways to lose with all of these strategies, so in the end, Blaine is kind of a wild card for the run, which is truly ironic as a water type. Even with 3 resets here, I am 3 minutes and 34 seconds ahead of my former pace. For Sabrina, I do think the best strategy is setting up 1 Swords Dance or 2 Swords Dances against the Kadabra, depending on what it's choosing. With 2, you get the outspeed on the Alakazam, and that's what I was able to pull off today. In my experience with Giovanni, setting up on the Persian didn't seem to be the right call. I do think that setting up on the Dugtrio is better, even though you have downside for Sand Attack and Fissure. There's no way to get around Fissure on the turns that you underspeed it, but it could go for Dig, giving you free turns of setup. Plus, Fissure is very inaccurate, and it doesn't do enough damage with Earthquake, whereas Persian can set up Double Team and then go for Slash, ruining your day. I got unlucky and lucky against Giovanni. I crit the Nidoking, but I paralyzed it so it wasn't able to attack, and Surf finishes Rhydon. Yes, for this playthrough, I have taught Surf. Rival 6 is not difficult for Kingler unless I get really unlucky like last time. This is how the fight is supposed to look. Set up on Sandslash and then destroy everything else. During Victory Road, I need to fight one optional trainer, this Juggler. He gives me just enough experience to level up to 50 50 with Kingler, and then I can use 3 more rare candies to boost to level 53 before starting Lorelei. 53 has very similar synergy to level 54. I level up after Lorelei's Lapras, the Machamp, and then Agatha's final Gengar. But I level up after knocking out Lance's Aerodactyl, so I lose badge boosts for the Dragonite. But this doesn't matter since Dragonite's pretty slow and Kingler is already faster. Lorelei is just so simple. I actually had a really bad fight here and got taken to low red health before defeating her. It was a bit scary when it wasn't supposed to be. Agatha is the most difficult battle for Kingler. I'm just going to keep saying this, even though in my follow-up playthroughs, I won against her on my first attempt every single time. The strategy is as I detailed before. Mimic Lick, set up Swords Dance 3 times, one-shot all of the ghosts, and use Body Slam for Golbat and Arbok. They're also one-shots. Lance is really easy unless the Gyarados somehow crits you with Hyper Beam. It didn't happen today. I set up to +6 and then I crushed the rest of his team. Surf is a little bit more consistent than using Crabhammer on the Aerodactyl. With Lance defeated, I am now 5 minutes and 56 seconds ahead of my former time. Kingler has beaten Lance under 36 minutes. Here's the thing, the champion isn't good against Kingler. Set up Swords Dance, Mimic Earthquake, crush his entire team, and finish the game with a time of 36 minutes and 28 seconds. 3 resets, level 58, and a game time of 2 hours and 21 minutes. I am 6 minutes and 10 seconds faster with this Kingler playthrough, which was my 4th overall. To keep the momentum going, I fought Oak with Kingler. This is also a really easy battle. I knock out the Tauros first because I'm about to level up, then I Mimic Hypnosis, put the Executor to sleep so it's not going to damage me, set up with Swords Dance, and then destroy everything with Body Slam. I only needed to fight him once. Okay, back to the beginning of this video. How did you think Kingler was going to do? Did you expect that it was going to be one of the best Pokemon overall to solo run the game with? I don't think you did. I know I didn't think it was going to be this good. I knew it was going to be good because I had heard rumors in the scene that it was an absolute monster, but I didn't expect this performance. Kingler's finish puts it in 3rd place overall, behind Nidoking and Victory Bell. And this is where we need to compare times. Victory Bell is at 36 minutes and 27 seconds. Kingler is literally 1 second behind Victory Bell. And I think it's realistic for Kingler to get a time that is in the 35-minute range if there are no resets to Blaine. I do think that overall, Nidoking and Victory Bell are better solo running Pokemon when compared with Kingler, but that doesn't minimize Kingler's achievement here. Going back to the tier list, I am now going to highlight every single medium slow growth rate Pokemon currently in the S tier. Kingler is boxed in by medium slow growth rate Pokemon, and it is currently the best performer of any other growth rate, even beating out Zapdos, which currently is the top ranked slow growth rate Pokemon, and it is the 2nd place finish for a Pokemon that does not have a medium slow growth rate. Kingler is just so much fun. I loved playing this Pokemon. It was so enjoyable. I highly recommend that you try out this route yourself if you're interested in solo challenges. Here's the route summary, just in case you want to play exactly how I did. With Kingler finished, we now have 142 Pokemon ranked in the tier list. Less than 10 left. Tomorrow, I'm going to come back and re-rank Magnemite and Voltorb. Those runs are going to be very different from Kingler's, but on some level, I am excited to revisit the weak electric types. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.